When I refused to sell our family relic to get money for college, my daughter started spreading rumors about me and nearly convinced her grandfather to send her to sea. Hello, I'm 45F, and I'm writing to ask for guidance on something that occurred to my 19F daughter. The case is a little complex, so let me start by giving you some history. When I was 26, I gave birth to my daughter Chloe with my then husband, Stan. After graduating from college, Stan and I tied the knot. To put it mildly, he came from a prosperous family of businessmen. His father raised him by himself when his mother, a cancer patient, passed away while he was a small child. Mark, my 65-year-old father-in-law, had always treated me like his own daughter and had occasionally defended me in front of his own family. Stan and I had a rough relationship when Chloe was born, and he seldom ever came home. We came close to filing for divorce when Chloe was 3, but Mark got us into marriage therapy, and we managed to work things out. However, everything felt very false, like a staged imitation of who we were. Stan and I made the decision to maintain our marriage for our daughter, Chloe, because the period leading up to the divorce had also had a significant impact on her. Chloe was raised by a whole family that loved her dearly but did not love one another. In order to ensure that Chloe would never experience financial hardship, Stan managed the family company, while I worked as a graphic designer. Chloe turned out to be a decent child who made things work for herself. When Chloe reached 17, Stan revealed his 5-year romance with his secretary, throwing a wrench in mine and Stan's agreement. After nearly a decade of being with us, that woman's backstabbing seemed like a betrayal from family. Our home was rather dramatic as a result of it, with Mark nearly forcing Stan to give up his will due to his careless actions. I was too fatigued to maintain the farce, so I made the decision that day to end my relationship with Stan and eventually file for divorce. Although Chloe remained silent, she undoubtedly took the brunt of it, as she was the one who had to move every weekend and spent the majority of her time living in a side apartment with her dad. His home was nearer the school, after all. I made an effort to ease her transition as much as possible, from making sure I wasn't fighting every time I saw Stan to giving her the finest of everything. By her senior year of high school, Chloe had made up her mind to follow in her father and grandfather's footsteps, and Mark had confided in me that he intended to start a new firm in Chloe's name and pass it on to her upon her graduation from college. She was accepted into a respectable business school after putting in a ton of effort during the academic year. She was expecting us to pay, and as a parent, I was willing to cover half the tuition with Stan covering the other half. She was unable to receive any financial help or scholarships. She had made her pregnancy known to Stan's side piece. I had begun to save, and I was able to obtain the 50% by pooling money from other savings. We became somewhat estranged during her senior year due to an event. Thus, as I previously stated, I had given special consideration to being there for Chloe following my and Stan's divorce. Chloe performed a talent presentation for the seniors and is a great pianist. Stan and I had agreed to go because it was a weekday. I contacted Stan on the day of the recital to see whether he was present because I was, for some reason, trapped at work. He informed me that since I was there, he believed it was all right that he and his girlfriend were at the hospital as the doctor's appointment had gone longer than anticipated. The idea terrified me, so I contacted Mark to see if he could make it to the recital, but he didn't pick up either. Stan and I both made a hasty escape from our predicament and arrived by the show's conclusion. Chloe had one, but her family was not present. So we discovered her making her way home by herself. She entered the car discreetly after spotting us, and when we tried to question her about it, she responded very angrily, which was understandable. She said that it was okay for him to be late since he was taking care of his kid's mother, but I put work before my child when I was ready to drop her and Stan off at his place. This deeply saddened me, but I realized this was coming from a place of hurt, so I kept my mouth shut. That weekend, I went her to her favorite restaurant for lunch after promising to make it up to her. But I don't think our relationship was the same after that. Chloe came to my house for an extended vacation after her exam since my husband's mistress wanted extra space because she was pregnant. Chloe asked me one afternoon at lunch whether I was going to cover her college costs, so she could give me a comprehensive breakdown of what it would cost. I informed her that, since her father would also be making a contribution, I would cover half of the tuition. She said that it was very evident that he wouldn't be making such a large payment given the addition of a new child to his household. Feeling a bit anxious at this point, I informed Chloe that I didn't have that amount of money, and that Stan shouldn't have essentially thrown away his first kid because he was expecting another. She nearly begged me to find a way to help her pay, saying that if I didn't, she would have to take out a student loan. She also said that she didn't hold any grudges toward her dad or his girlfriend for not being able to make the payments. She became irate and fled when I mentioned that the loan would be a good idea because we truly didn't have enough money. I believe she was expecting me to cover everything, rather than having her take out a loan. I didn't talk to her the rest of the day since I felt that I should give her the space she needed. Chloe was gone all morning the following day. When I phoned her, I found out that she was out with a friend and would return shortly. She returned about midday and approached me with a very enthusiastic expression. She put this jewelry on my table after I questioned her about why she was happy. My late mother's blue sapphire necklace was the one she had set there. When I was a kid, we weren't wealthy or particularly comfortable, so this really pricey necklace, which had been in our family since my great-great-grandma, was seen as a fortunate sign. When I questioned Chloe where she had found the necklace, she said that it had been found in the attic among my mom's other belongings. She said that after having a friend inspect the jewelry, she discovered its high worth. She went on to say that by selling this necklace, I could now cover all of her college expenses. Her statement surprised me since this was something that had been passed down to me and was in my family for many generations. It felt strange that my own daughter, who would eventually inherit this, would want me to sell it when it wasn't even required. Looking at Chloe, I could see how happy she was, but I chose to calm her down by telling her that this family artifact was too emotional to sell. She made the point that since she was family, it wouldn't be of any value if it couldn't assist her, but I politely declined and asked that we not talk about it anymore. When I went to check on her, she had gone to her room because she was angry and was packing her things to be with her dad. She just said no and walked out when I attempted to persuade her that it wasn't such a big issue and that we could figure something out. As Chloe's graduation date drew near, I naturally anticipated receiving an invitation to her school. Instead, I got an invitation to Stan's house for the after-party. I emailed Chloe thinking there had to be a mistake, and she informed me that the school only permitted one parent, so I reluctantly approved her. Planned to take her father. Later on graduation day, Chloe posted something on Instagram that upset me, wherein photos of her graduation ceremony with Stan and his mistress were contained. I made the decision to not let the day get to me and to simply get by. It seemed as though nothing had happened at all during the graduation celebration. I dismissed Mark's attempt to comfort me over my absence from Chloe's graduation ceremony by blaming it on my illness. When it was time for the speech, Chloe stepped up front and started expressing her gratitude to everyone. She would not stop talking about how her soon-to-be stepmother was her lucky charm and the source of her prosperity. I assumed I would be brought up at some point since she would not stop talking about Stan and his new family. However, the speech finished without mentioning me. This hurt my heart, and Mark could tell how sad I was by the look on my face. After what appeared to be a fierce confrontation from a distance, he went straight to Chloe to speak with her and departed a few minutes later. Then Chloe approached me and requested a private conversation, so we headed to her room together. When her grandfather Mark confronted her about not giving me credit for her success, she started screaming and accusing me of ruining her special day. She told him he shouldn't interfere because he didn't know the whole story, to which he stormed out and replied that he did know everything. She insisted that I was a snitch since I had exposed her to Mark and ruined her friendship with him. She refused to listen to me when I informed her it wasn't me who had told him about our talk, and she requested me to get out of there as quickly as possible. I got myself together, then departed, devastated by it all. Chloe called me later that evening, sobbing and pleading for me to come over to Stan's house right away. I became a bit nervous and drove straight to his place. When I walked in, I noticed Mark and Stan, his sidekick, sitting on the couch while Chloe stood by, sobbing. When I inquired about the situation, I discovered that Stan had contacted Mark the day after Chloe had gone to his place following our argument, requesting either some money for her college education or his help persuading me to pay the entire cost. Mark became irate with Stan for taking advantage of me simply so he wouldn't have to pay for his own daughter, and he stopped talking. Ever since that day, Chloe and Mark had not spoken to one another. When Chloe refused to accept my name and offered an absurd explanation, Mark lost his cool and told Chloe something she didn't want to hear. He did, however, urge me to be honest with him about what had actually transpired between Chloe and me. I filled him in on everything, and he shared my disgust at the idea of selling a family heritage that wasn't needed. He then stood up and started berating Chloe for treating me in this manner before pulling out the documents for the business he had arranged for Chloe to get as a graduation present. After telling Chloe about it, he proceeded to rip it up in front of everyone, declaring that he had been mistaken to think Chloe was a wonderful child and that he would no longer be spoiling her. This stunned everyone, and Chloe started weeping uncontrollably, pleading with Mark to soften his treatment of her. Then, after being such an entitled brat, Mark turned to face me and requested me not to give Chloe the money I had saved for her college education. He then departed without saying anything to me. Then, while Stan and his sidekick continued blaming me for starting this problem, Chloe started pleading with me to persuade Mark to give her back the future firm. I promised Chloe I would give it some thought, but I couldn't handle it all, so I left to return home. The next morning I receive a barrage of texts from Stan and Chloe pleading with me to speak with Mark and put things right. Even though I still don't think it was my fault, I'm feeling quite stressed out and am considering asking Mark to dinner tonight to talk about the situation. So, am I the bad guy for not harming my daughter's future by not selling my family heirloom to get money for college? Update 1. Hello. Initially, I would want to respond to some inquiries about the initial post. Initially, why was Mark unable to cover Chloe's educational costs? Despite his wealth, Mark still thinks that individuals should work for their positions, therefore he wasn't ready to pay for Chloe's schooling in and of itself. However, once she graduated, he was happy to give her a job at the firm. Stan was comfortable, as I indicated, but he wasn't as wealthy as his father. He was saving money for his new child and family. Although Stan's girlfriend, Chloe's future stepmother, has wronged me, I don't like Stan's side piece since, so far, Chloe has always found her to be kind and caring. When Stan and I chose to get a divorce, Chloe didn't like her at first, but in the intervening years they had grown closer through our shared experience of having dysfunctional parents and having grown into adult step-parent-child relationships. It wasn't until now that I realized the full scope of their relationship. To give you the real news, I discussed whatever had happened with Mark over the dinner, and we agreed that it wasn't fair for him to deny Chloe company and for me to refuse to pay for her. Chloe's actions at her celebration demonstrated Mark's unmistakable message that she would not have valued any of it. Not only was she behaving as like she earned everything, but she also showed no sign of wanting to succeed on her own, which disappointed him. I learned from him that although I may give her the money I had saved for her, I shouldn't expect the same in return, and shouldn't be upset if Chloe decides to leave me for her new family in the future. After telling me it wasn't my fault, Mark walked away. I contacted Chloe after he departed to inform her that her grandfather wouldn't grant her a position in the firm until she succeeded. When she realized this, she freaked out and started cursing me and blaming me for everything that had gone wrong. Stan had to take the phone away from her because things became too out of control for her to stop. I'm now reconsidering my choice to cover half of her college expenses because of the conduct on this phone. The next day, I received word from Mark that he and Stan were having a heated dispute once more. Stan was accusing Mark and me of being the ones who were unfairly treating Chloe and making her miserable. Being the brave guy that he is, Mark told Stan that although he was the one who was really abandoning his daughter, he could also afford to pay for her. Mark took care to warn him that, in the event that his foolish finger-pointing continued, he would lose his job at the company he led. After that, Stan essentially stopped talking and stopped defending Chloe. Under the pretense of demonstrating how family should be handled, even his mistress attempted to persuade Mark. But since she wasn't as wealthy, she immediately refused to pay Mark when he requested her to pay for Chloe instead. After our most recent conversation, I attempted to reach Chloe to see how she was doing. However, it appears that I have been prohibited from calling and from using any social media platforms, so it seems reasonable that I am no longer paying for her college education. Update No. 2. Since the latest update, which was given a week ago, nothing has been happening. I'm still fairly set on not supporting my own daughter financially, even though I know that caving in to her requests will simply encourage such behavior. Still, I feel bad about not assisting my own daughter with her schooling. What transpired following is covered in this update. As previously said, Chloe was in disarray since she knew she would have to take out a school debt, and that she most likely wouldn't be joining the family company. Although I don't like that chick, I'm pleased that Chloe has someone to turn to for mental support, because I've heard that Stan's girlfriend has been her rock through it all. After a few days, Mark too felt that life was too short to harbor resentment after losing his stepdaughter due to financial difficulties. He was still not going to provide her with any money or other support, but desired to speak with her to clarify what went wrong and discuss how we might make things right moving forward between us. They had lunch together after Chloe accepted to see him, but things didn't go as expected. After a time of talking, everything was going well until Mark questioned Chloe about why she hadn't invited me to her graduation. By now, Chloe had cooked up a whole tale about how she had begged me to pay half her tuition and inquired about the necklace to make things easier on me, but instead I had scolded her for being so entitled in an attempt to convince her grandfather. Despite everything, she added, she was still inviting me to the graduation. However, I chose to turn down the offer, and I was now playing the part of the victim. I am aware of this event because Mark, a wise guy, chose to double-check with me after hearing her out. I started crying when Mark questioned me about turning down the invitation because I realized how much Chloe had gone to spite me. In addition to telling him the truth, I made it quite evident that I wasn't invited to her graduation on purpose by showing him the conversations, which Chloe must have forgotten about before lying. At this time, Mark was quite dissatisfied and contacted Chloe to tell her that until she stopped being dishonest, they wouldn't be in a relationship. I also made the decision to text her from Mark's cell, letting her know that I didn't want to communicate with such an unappreciative child. Stan's girlfriend did text me a few times, calling me names and harming her connection with her family, so I just blocked her as I knew she wasn't worth my time. Update 3. I never imagined that things would get to this point, and that I would need to make an update so quickly. Following Chloe's chat with Mark, she came to the conclusion that fabricating a story and spreading it was the only way to win people around in this circumstance. She made me the antagonist by using her TikTok account to publish a few videos in which she claimed that I was a toxic mother, and that I had manipulated several events that had occurred throughout her youth. She even went so far as to make offensive remarks regarding my partnership with Mark. Since I don't use these new social media platforms, my coworker who is following my daughter informed me of the problem. I sent an email to Stan, Chloe, and his girlfriend Stan, deciding that this was it, that all the boundaries had been breached, saying that I would sue them for slander if they didn't take down the video as quickly as possible. My colleague reassured me that the post had hardly any views, so I didn't need to worry. When Mark realized what had happened, he made the decision to write Chloe an email that looked like mine. Later that night, I received a call from a distant cousin who inquired about my circumstances with Chloe and essentially accused me of failing to protect my kid. When I questioned her about how she found out, I discovered that the TikTok had become quite popular in our neighborhood. I made the decision to download the app in order to check what others were talking about. And Chloe was enjoying the nasty remarks, which were tearing away my reputation. Hate mails from both strangers and people I knew were also piling up on my phone and email. I decided to sue her and Stan after all, since I couldn't believe how disgusting my own child was, but not before sharing my side of the tale online. I did upload a couple of my own movies, supporting my claims with evidence, and they received far more views than I had anticipated. People were now supporting me on the internet, and Chloe decided it would be best to message me in order to have things straightened up in person and have the postings taken down because of all the hate that was being directed at her. She assumed I would obey her, which infuriated me. I instructed her to inform Stan to meet me at his father's office the next day. After talking through all of this, Mark and I agreed that we would sue Chloe and Stan as her guardians for defamation, since we had already gone through enough and Mark's company was being negatively impacted by all of this negative publicity. Stan showed up with Chloe at Mark's office the next day. With his attorney at his side, Mark informed Stan and Chloe that they would be sued for slander. Chloe instantly erased the TikToks she had posted in an attempt to remove any evidence after being alarmed by the idea of really appearing in court for her little films. But she started crying like a crocodile when Mark showed her the screen captures of the tapes, pleading with him to stop ruining her future. Stan even attempted to use guilt-shaming to get me to take back the case, but because he didn't put an end to the disaster in the first place, I requested him to refrain from interfering at this time. To be honest, this has been really stressful, and it's much more upsetting when it comes from your own child. I've made the decision to stop using social media for the time being, and when I return from my online vacation, I'll be reading the comments. Update 4. Since the issue has been fixed, and I'm publishing this after a few months, it's reasonable to assume that this is the last update. Additionally, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who left suggestions in the comments. I really appreciate your help. Thus, a lot has changed since the last time, particularly with Chloe. As everything transpired just before the long weekend, we made the decision to file the complaint on Monday. I received a call from Mark on Saturday, requesting that I visit Stan's place right now. I hurried, and what had transpired was really horrifying. Thus, following our disclosure of the situation to Stan and Chloe, they returned home and engaged in a furious dispute. Stan's girlfriend experienced shortness of breath as a result, and she was sent to the hospital. Following the examination, she returned home with the kid, and both of them were safe. Chloe wanted to apologize to her since she felt bad about endangering her health, but instead they got into a heated argument. Chloe was urged to give Stan's girlfriend some room. Chloe continued to bother Stan's girlfriend, though, since she wanted to hear that her apologies was accepted. Things became worse because of this, and it was clear that she was really irritated. Luckily, Stan was able to break up the disagreement before it turned violent, with Chloe shoving Stan's girlfriend out of rage. When Chloe realized what she had done, she sobbed and fled to her room. A few hours later, she walked down and was shocked to see all of us seated there. As soon as she realized what she had done, she apologized to Stan's girlfriend and said her actions were unacceptable. At this juncture, Stan expressed his belief that Chloe poses a risk to both his unborn kid and his pregnant partner, and he wanted her to leave their home as soon as possible. Chloe attempted to apologize again after being taken aback by this, but Stan's girlfriend informed her that this was the only choice available to her. Although Chloe brought this on herself after realizing what she had done, I thought it was still cruel. Chloe had no choice but to accept Mark's offer to remain with him till things worked out. Stan started weeping and begged his father to take back the case we were about to file when Chloe departed to pack her luggage. He said he would prefer to cut his relationship with Chloe if it meant giving up his freedom, and that he didn't want to go into legal trouble at such a pivotal time in his life. I'm not kidding when I tell you that every person in the room had their mouths pressed to the ground. I know Chloe wasn't perfect, and, to be honest, wasn't even a good human at this time, but by cutting off communication with one of his children for the benefit of another who hadn't even been born, Stan was doing no one any favors. Mark and I exchanged stunned looks, waiting for Stan's fiancée to comment. She only stated that nothing was their fault and expressed complete agreement with Stan. Even if Chloe was nasty, this was still too trivial to come from her father, as I already stated. After that, Mark didn't reply to Stan, and, when Chloe came downstairs, he and I went with them. I received an apologies message from Chloe on Mark's phone the next day. She added that her dad planned to disown her, and that her grandfather had told her everything. She also said that she discovered too late that I was the only parent who truly cared about her. I asked her to take care of herself instead of forgiving her outright. I gave Mark a call that night, and since Chloe was already dealing with a lot and was, obviously, in need of assistance, we both decided that it wasn't a good idea to pursue the defamation case against her at this time. Chloe immediately agreed to our decision to let her leave, provided that she issued a public apology for Mark and myself on all social media channels. She also stated in that post that she was cutting off communication with both her daughter and his girlfriend. Upon learning that the matter had been dismissed, Stan attempted to contact Chloe to apologize for bringing up the notion of disowning her, but Chloe chose to put up with him instead. She vented all of her rage and told him everything what was going on, from his cheating on her to him leaving her. After that, he understood the relationship was ended and had nothing else to say. Chloe made the decision to work alone and had taken out a school debt. Before she left, she did stop by my place and apologized sincerely for whatever had happened. I was able to forgive her, but I also expressed that our relationship needed a lot of work, and I asked for some space, to which she consented. Chloe is currently attending treatment for her mental health concerns in addition to finding a job close to her college campus. Though we haven't spoken much, we want to invite her over for the holidays. While Stan and his new family appear to be doing well, Mark also doesn't spend much time with her. However, he has admitted to his father that he regrets breaking up with his daughter.